What's up, friends? So it's been a while since I posted something, but just wanted to show off the board today. I built this about a week ago, and basically it's just been a culmination of a simplifier board that I built over the past couple months, and it's gone through multiple iterations. This is definitely the best board, I want to say, in my opinion, that I built, just because of the soldering, all the cabling involved, even just like the routing and like the ideas I had in mind. But basically what I've done with my previous board builds using the simplifier, I've just basically just kind of combined everything. And if you see some of the pictures that the board iterations went through. But the idea I had in mind was using the Simplifier Preamp and then using the IRs and the HX Stomp. So doing a combination of analog and digital, and that turned out to be like the best combination I've done so far. I was using the Simplifier Cabsims for a while, but something wasn't really cutting it with me. So just combining the two, using the features from the HX Stomp and then using the preamp from the Simplifier, that, in my opinion, I think this is the best sound that I've come up with. Even using the Iridium or the Stomp with the amps, I think this sounds up to par or even better, depending on like what IRs I use. So with the Simplifier, I'm using the AC Brit setting, and for this one, I was able to actually use the EQ section. In my previous videos, I pretty much turned the EQ completely flat, and then even the resonance and presence, I turned that completely off. It's just, for me, it wasn't cutting it for me. But now, with the preamp, I can really dial in using the EQ and then gain, volume. So this, I think, and just personal opinion, but I think this is where the Simplifier really shines, using it as a preamp, and then bypassing the Cabsims and using something like the HX Stomp. If you could even do like the Cabsims from GFI systems, but just getting really quality IRs. Right now I'm running Michael Westbrook, a couple of his IRs, and I've used the David Hislop. I was using the Greenback and then the ProSonic. So on the Stomp, I'm running stereo IRs, hard pan left and right, and then I've actually added room reverb blocks on each path. So path A got an IR, and then I got a room block, and then same thing for path B. And the split on the Stomp is, again, hard pan left and right, and then after the split, I've done the same thing as well. Just a couple things to note on the Stomp, I did have to make adjustments on the IRs, maybe bring up the levels just a little bit, and then I noticed I was clipping as well. So I left the output left at 0, and that fixed it for me. So I wanted to go through the board and kind of go through the process. And with this setup, I can do a lot of things. So I'll go through signal chain first. So at the top right, got the Goodwood TX interfacer. It's got buffered in, passive in, stereo outs, got some to mono. It's got a phase switch, and then a ground switch as well if you're running the stereo amps and you're getting a buzzing sound. So I mean, I've had this for a while, but I haven't had a need to use it. But with this setup, I mean, I could run to amps if I wanted to. I could run direct, like what I'm doing right now. And another thing with the Simplifier, I could still use the 1/4 inch and XLR outs if I wanted to. So I could actually do a wet, dry, wet setup if I wanted to. On the Simplifier, there's a 1/4 inch out that I can just do the through. So my dry section plus the Julia and the Bell Epoch, I can send that straight into the front of an amp. So a lot of things I can do with this. So back to the interfacer. So right now I'm going buffered in and then buffered out to the Cali 76 compressor, and then I'm using the tuner out, and I have the tuner plugged in there. From the Cali, go to the Pog, and then to the kilt, and then the pedal in the middle, this NRG Effects, it's a 3-in-1. It's a Monochrome Triple. So the far right is a mid-range boost, so I can use that like as a first stage drive if I wanted to. The one in the middle is the Per Mini Overdrive. Basically, it's just the just an overdrive, and it sounds really great with this setup. I'm able to retain the character of the amp tones that I'm using. And then on the left, the Pumper 072, that's just a boost. Right now, it's got a buffer as well. I'm just using that as a little volume boost. Out of the Monochrome Triple, we go to the volume pedal. And then out of the volume pedal, you go to the Julia. And I've got a little bit of a vibrato setting dialed up on this one. Out of the Julia, we go to the Bell Epoch. And this is, I'm a huge fan of tape echo, so I'm using the tape echo setting right now. And I was intentional about placing this in front of the preamp because I wanted to kind of push the front of the amp, get a little bit of that saturation instead of running all the time-based effects after. So I have that in front, plus it's mono as well. Out of the Bell Epoch, I have the Goodwood Audio Edition, and that's mounted underneath the Simplifier. So it's Bell Epoch into the Simplifier input, the Audition input, and then Audition output will go to the microcosm. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about the Audition real quick. So Bell Epoch is in the input of the Audition, and then the send on the Audition goes to the Simplifier input, and then the return on the Audition goes to the Simplifier send. So that's how it's set up to bypass the Cabsim. So I'm just basically plugging it into the input and then using the send. And again, the send from the Simplifier goes to the Audition return. So basically, the Simplifier sits in the Audition loop, so I can hit the switch on the Audition if I wanted to bypass it altogether. So out of the Audition, we go to the microcosm. So up to that point, that whole signal chain has been mono, and then stereo out of the microcosm, and the rest of the pedals are going to be stereo. So stereo out of the microcosm into the deco. I've got like this huge stereo wide spread effect and kind of dialed up like a stereo chorus. Out of the deco to the dig, I've got it set to an 1/8 note delay. I'm doing ping-pong delay, so I get a really wide stereo image. And then the L cap, I'm using the mode or fixed setting mode B, so that's dotted 1/8. I've got a little bit of spring reverb dialed in on it as well. And out of the L cap, going to the Flint, and I've got just a little bit of the 70s reverb set up. Decay is less, like between 11 and 12. Mix is about the same thing. And then out of the Flint to the Big Sky, and then stereo out of the Big Sky into the Stomp, and then Stomp goes back to the interfacer, and then I can do a bunch of different things, run to DI or amps or whatever. So that's the signal chain. We'll go through some sounds real quick. So I'm just going to start off with the dry section. So here's with just a Cali. Stay in tune. So I kind of run my amps pretty clean, so then I use the drive pedals to do the tone shaping and push the amp even further. So for me, I actually got to play this board live last week, and I ended up using the kilt the most. So left side, I usually just kept that on the whole time. So here's what it sounds like. On the kilt, I've got all the knobs turned down, so low cut's down, G1, G2 is down, and then the order with the boost, I have the boost in front of the drive, so it's actually pushing it even more. So yeah, like last Sunday, I pretty much just used kilt for, low to medium, and then using it for lead. So, I forgot to mention the Pog. Use that sparingly, or if I'm doing ambient stuff, just to fatten up the lead lines, I'll do that. Next one is the Monochrome Triple. same concept. So the mid-range boost is kind of like the first stage overdrive. So here's clean, and then with the boost. So tonally sounds different from the kilt, so it gives me a couple of options doing that. And then we'll do the permanent mini overdrive just by itself. And then I'll stack both together, so the boost and the overdrive. But, you know, I've just been doing kilt for the most part. So out of the Monochrome Triple to the volume, and then volume to the Julia. And then from the Julia to the Bell Epoch. So just a quick tidbit. So I've got 3 different pedals that I'm sending tap tempo information using the micro clock. So the El Cap, which you do have to get modded to accept tap tempo, and the Dig, and then the Bell Epoch, which does accept tap tempo. It's not 100%. So it's basically using the control voltage mode. If you look up Disaster AO Designs on Instagram, they have a video on how to set that up. So it has a really cool slapback sound. But right now I actually have the delay dialed in. So here's with the kilt and the Bell Epoch. I can make it self-oscillate. But again, I have the Bell Epoch in front of the preamp, so I can push it even further, get a little bit of that saturation, because I do like running, you know, wet effects in the front of the amp. But this one is a combination of both. So like from Deco on, that's after the preamp, before the Cabsims on the HX Stomp. The Bell Epoch is before the preamp. So when I do both, so I'm going to do Dig and El Cap together. And then here's the slap back. And there's 6 different delay modes. So the first one is based off the Echoplex, and then the second one is an analog. Third one I think is a rotary or something. There's 2 different ones, rotary and another one. 5 and 6 are like the deluxe memory man, but I've just got it set to mode 1 right now. And then next one, so we've got our additional loop with the Simplifier Preamp. So the next one would be the Microcosm, and this thing is an ambient machine. So when I'm playing live, if I'm doing some kind of like pads or stuff, I'll turn the time knob all the way up, and I'll basically just kind of swell in like this. So So I'm using the mosaic mode, and it's basically just doing micro loops, but it's just adds so much texture. You know, doing lead lines or even just like doing swells. You know, I'll use the cloud setting on, or cloud setting or the bloom on the big sky, and then get this really crazy stereo image with the dig and the L cap. And then the quantized looper is awesome as well. That's what I was doing at the beginning of the video, and just set it to reverse. Out of the microcosm, we go to the dig, and you can just hear the ping-pong delay. It's 8th note. And then from dig to L cap. So with my older board iterations, I would use both the dig and L cap, so you can get this really nice stereo image. So I've been using that combination a lot. Need to circle back. I completely forgot about the deco. You could do flanger setting, chorus setting. You could do just a huge stereo image, or even use it as a delay. But right now I got it dialed in to do like a stereo chorus effect. So here's what it sounds like. And then stack with the Julia. Just the really cool effects, especially when you get that hard pan left and right. So deco, dig, L cap, and then the flint, and it's just a subtle 70s reverb setting. And then with the tremolo, that's there if I need it. And then big sky. So I'm using Analog Endeavor's 2-button switch. That's basically to bank up and down. I'm using Guitar Force Glory patches. I'm using the ones that are labeled IR, so they're kind of tuned down just a little bit, so not too harsh. Running with the IRs, like the other ones, I think it's more suited for running into the front of an amp or even the Kemper. So this one's more tame. So I'll stack the microcosm and then the bloom setting sometimes for ambient. But playing on Sundays, I'm using just the Bethel IR ones and then the cloud setting a lot. And then stereo out to the Stomp. Again, the Stomp, I got 2 different IRs. Here's actually with the David Hislop ones, just to get a sound sample real quick. So I got options there. And then stereo out of the Stomp back to the interfacer, and then interfacer out to amps, DI box. So this is, I mean, pretty much what I'm going to stick with. I was also intentional about how I wired up the board. So if I want to swap pedals out, so like for example, where the NRG effects pedal is, you know, I could do a top mounted, you know, like a protein or a Benton size pedal if I want to do that. And then where the kilt is, you know, where the switch or the input and output are on the left side and right side, I could do that as well. In my other board builds, I kind of limited myself when I cut the power cable, you know, exactly to the length, so I was kind of stuck with that. And if I wanted to, you know, change other pedals out that were different sizes, I was pretty much stuck. So this time around, I actually cut it a little longer and then did a little bit of a loop. Same thing with the patch cables as well. Some of them I did cut like exactly to length, like here for example, but for the most part did give myself, you know, enough room in case I want to swap pedals out. But that's pretty much it. Again, this is just I just found like the best combination with the Simplifier Preamp, HX Stomp IRs, and then a little bit of the tape echo in front of the preamp, what effects after. So it's just a best combination of analog and digital, and the routing options as well. Another thing to note, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I ran from the Simplifier 1/4 inch out, I ran into like a Marshall amp one day, but then I also had this crazy stereo image, you know, using the setup I got right now with the Stomp, and it sounds really great. I would love to see if I can, you know, maybe set up a wet dry wet at some point and get that recorded. But yeah, that's it. Definitely hit me up for questions. I'm more active on Instagram, so I definitely answer questions there as well. But again, thanks for checking out the video. I'll see you guys soon.